have I got a treat for you. My name's Carolyn Wellman, and this is Words of Wisdom, but I have a very, very special guest tonight. I'm so excited. This is Danie Litchfield, and I found her on Instagram. She has a podcast. So I didn't find her podcast first. I found her Instagram first, and it's called Wicked Mysterious, and it's all things woo-woo. That's how I label it, and it is fantastic. Like, I think I've liked every single one of her posts. So I have to tell you about her. So this is the bio she sent me. I have always considered myself sensitive. Oh, same. And struggled to find a career that felt fulfilling. In 2020, like most, I had the opportunity to really deep dive into the things that interest me and began researching and educating myself on all things related to the spiritual realm. I spent a lot of time learning how thoughts and beliefs create your reality and dismantling the ones that no longer fit with the life I wanted to have. In my quest for deeper meaning, I was told by one spiritual guru or another, if you don't know what you to do with your life, start by doing anything. That's actually great advice. So that's what I did. I started a side gig of psychic readings using tarot, which ignite my passion for helping other people. That's what I do too. I love helping other people. Through that, I strengthened my understanding and connection with the universe, especially when it comes to symbolism and synchronicity. Hello, she's here. I branched out further by creating and co-hosting Wicked Mysterious podcast, which I highly recommend. All the links are in the description, discussing all the mysteries of the universe. I hold a bachelor's degree from the University of Metaphysics, Sedona, and I'm working toward a double doctorate in metaphysical psychology and counseling and metaphysical parapsychology. Now, here's something you may not have known. I have republished all of Helene Hadsel's works, and Tag Powell's, I've started doing his, and both him and her had a metaphysical degree. So you're down the same path as Helene Hadsel. How exciting is that?
Yeah, I think that's why I connected with her so much when I started researching for Wicked Mysterious. One of our earliest episodes was Helene Hadsel. So there was a lot of overlap with her life and mine. And I really, that was probably my favorite episode that I've written because I just thought she was such an amazing person.
Yeah. And she loved the woo-woo. Like, I've been posting things on the website that didn't even make it to the books.
Mm-hmm.
Now it said, now you started in 2020, but I have a feeling you liked, well, we'll just lump it in as woo-woo. anything and everything metaphysical. You probably liked it far before 2020, and it just kind of blossomed. It's like planting a seed, right? It kind of blossomed in 2020 when everyone had time to dig into all the things that they had never had time to. So when did you first start being interested in anything that's not of the everyday world?
It was my dad, for sure. My earliest memories of, growing up, I remember sitting in front of the old black and white TV, the floor model, and watching old Lost in Space shows with my dad.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah. And from there, I just asked a lot of questions growing up. And I remember in school, actually, I think I was in 3rd or 4th grade, a teacher would give us a piece of candy if we asked a question. And that positive feedback kind of just stuck with me. And I just I've always done that. And my dad is very spiritually aware. And I think psychic on some level. And he always told me, if you don't use these gifts, you will lose them. And that always stuck with me too. And yeah, and he was really into just mysteries, and it was mainly things like Atlantis and the Bermuda Triangle, Bigfoot, aliens, UFOs, even though at the time that stuff really scared me. I was interested in it. And actually, he had this book. I have it here. It's called Strange Stories, Amazing Facts. So this was one of my dad's favorite books. And There's this
I can see why.
Oh yeah, there's this story in here about the Belmez faces, which is another episode we did. And if you haven't heard of that, it's this lady who could burn stuff into the like faces into the floor where she lived, and the pictures of it were so scary, but so intriguing and so interesting. I just wanted to know how does this stuff work, and I've always been into reading. I remember finding a book on ESP when I was probably like 5 or 6 years old and just being so entranced by it. And then, of course, Unsolved Mysteries. I used to watch that with my grandmother. I'm not really into the true crime aspect of it, but just the unexplained phenomena
Yeah.
just always intrigued me. So that's really where it all started, my long-winded answer.
No, it's fun because I think that's how it starts. I remember reading those types of books when I was a kid, and I always thought it was so interesting. I remember seeing the well, they call them airfields, but the big imprints all over the world. I can't remember what they're called right off the top of my head.
There's a few of them. We actually did an episode on that. The Nazca lines.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I loved reading all of that stuff
Mhm.
when I was younger. And so I think that's why when I ended up connecting with Helene, the idea that you had to think positively before you're a winner didn't surprise me at all.
Mhm.
So now, how did you go from, besides having a lot of time on your hands from 2020, so what prompted you to do a podcast? Like a lot of people would do something else, like maybe write a book.
Well, I don't really know why I chose a podcast. It just felt right at the time. I didn't know when I was younger what I could do. And I wish that's something I could go back and tell my younger self, that there's so many options and there's so many things that you can do. And I was, pigeonholed into the idea of having to go to college and having to have some sort of career in an office or something like that. And that's what I started off doing. I had a job in a corporate setting for like 16 years, and it just wasn't fulfilling at all. And I went to school to be a massage therapist because I'm like, well, that'll satisfy that woo-woo need in my life. And it didn't, because that still wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't love it. But it did open a lot of doors for me. I met somebody in school who told me about Mike Dooley, who is like a spiritual coach. He
Oh,
was
I
in The
love him.
Secret. Yeah. So she had put on the board something about his email list, and I signed up for it. So this is going back like, I don't know, 10 or 15 years now. So I've been on his email list for a long time. So fast forward to 2020, I have all these things that I want. I have, I have a child. I have the house that I want. I have the relationship that I want. And it's still this need that is not being fulfilled. And I like an itch you can't scratch. And I couldn't figure out what it was. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to do something. So I signed up for Infinite Possibilities, Train the Trainer with Mike Dooley, which is his whole thing is thoughts
Oh.
become things. So I did that, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. I don't know what, but I'm going to do it, whatever it is. And it just started off on this path of following my passions. I also read I think it was called Live Your Dharma or Living Your Dharma or something to that effect. And it's about finding your passion and following it. So I just went back to when I was a kid and what did I like and what made me feel curious and excited and mysteries, right? So that's what I started doing and researching it. And a lot of it comes from the quest for truth, as silly as that sounds. I just want to know. I
That's
want
not
to know
silly at
more.
all.
Yeah, I want to know everything I can know. And the podcast really helped with that, because you can start piecing together different mysteries from different cultures and different times in history. And it kind of all starts to make sense. They say the truth is out there, and it's true. It is if you look. you'll find it. So, and podcasting, I don't really know. I don't know why I jumped into that, but that's what I did. I know when I was a kid, I had a boombox and I used to hit the record and I'd be my own DJ before my songs would come on. So I have the gift of gab, obviously. So it just felt natural and it was easy to do. There's not a lot of technological stuff that goes into it. So here I am.
Yeah, it's a lot easier now. I had
Yeah.
started a podcast in 2008 and we had to phone in on landlines.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
It
lot
was
easier
not,
now.
I wish I'd kept some of the episodes, but they kept changing and I didn't download them all myself. I should have. But yeah, it's so much easier now. You basically just need a microphone
Mm-hmm.
and, a script or an outline
Yep.
and go. That's awesome. So, how many episodes have you done to date?
75
And
officially.
which one was your favorite?
I'm gonna say Helene.
No,
Um,
I'm not going to pick Helene. Okay, how about this? I want to, because
besides
that's how
Helene.
I originally found you, and then I
Mhm.
started seeing. I saw your posts and that episode, and then I started seeing all the other stuff you're
Mhm.
posting. I'm like, this is amazing, and I've been following you ever since. Um, which is why I finally reached out and said, okay, I have to have her on this show because I want everyone else to come and listen to you too. So any episode besides Helene, which one was your favorite?
Definitely the George Van Tassel episode, and I'm sure if there are listeners out there, they're probably so sick of hearing me talk about him, but I found him so fascinating, and that was another one that I just kind of fell into. Do you know about him at all?
That's the one I've listened to a lot, but not that particular one. So now I'm gonna have to put it next on the queue.
Yeah. So the way that I fell into that was through Ashtar Galactic Command and that whole weird thing that happened in the 70s. It was like a weird cult. But if you trace it back, Ashtar, there was some sort of TV broadcast that somebody tapped into and took over and said, "My name is Ashtar," and spoke like an alien and stuff. I think it was a hoax. But if you go back to where Ashtar came from, it was a channeled being that this man, George Van Tassel, was able to contact through meditation. So he owned an Air Force base that had, it was, I think it was in Big Rock, California. So it was under this big rock, right? And they would go under there and do meditations and stuff. And when he bought the air base, that was all existing, but he started being contacted by these beings that came down on a ship and asked him, "Do you want to go for a ride in our spaceship?" And he was into it and did that and started getting these messages about humanity and what these aliens are there for, and he would ask questions like about the pyramids, what are the pyramids for, and where did humanity come from, and all these just deep questions about us. And yeah, I found him very interesting. He wrote a couple books. Um, so I think that was my favorite episode because even though I can't say for sure if it's true or not, I like when something makes sense and I can see a world where that could be the truth. And I like that about him. He was very, very interesting character.
Oh my gosh, now I definitely have to go and listen to that episode. He reminds me like of an early Billy Carson.
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
Ooh, okay, we just traded. I got one, you got one.
I want to hear
Yeah,
about it. I'll make an episode.
he's current and he's talking about all the same types of things as he did. So, but I think that's how the teachers actually work. Like when people talk about Helene and they say, well, she has to give credit to Jose Silva, but she actually won everything before Jose. She learned from Norman Vincent Peale, who
Right.
learned from and it's, there's over 100 years ago, there was Florence Scovel Shinn and Neville, and Wallace
Mhm.
Wattles and Neville Goddard, and he was about 90 years ago, and then Jose started in the 40s, but he started teaching in the 60s, and now we have like the Jack Canfields and the Mike Dooleys. Like they're all kind of
Mhm.
growing on standing on each other's shoulders, so to speak, and moving everybody forward and introducing these concepts to a whole new generation each time, right? And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, which I think was the whole point.
Right. Yes.
So yeah, so Billy's new, and I bet you if we look, it was George, right? You said
Yeah, George Van Tassel.
George probably was also one of the inspirations for Billy. Like, that's how it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. One thing that I find really fascinating is all the stories, whether it be where humans come from, whether it be aliens or any kind of spiritual teaching. If you look deep enough, they all are saying the same thing. But what's fascinating to me about it is just different words that are used, right? Like we have the Bible, for example. But then we can read modern day spiritual teachings and they're saying the same thing. It's just a different way of hearing it, and we need that because not everybody speaks the same language. Not everybody, there might be that one thing that somebody says that really resonates with you, and you can start piecing things together. There's so many stories, ancient Egypt, or Native American stories. They all essentially they have their own stories, but essentially when it comes down to it, there's all the same belief system to me, it seems like.
Yeah. When I was 25, I lived in Australia, and I got a hold of some Dreamtime books that I
Mhm.
read when I was down there. And it was very similar, right? They were very connected spiritually. And what was really cool was we haven't seen the sky for the light pollution until there's nothing around for hundreds of kilometers. And I went to Alice Springs, to Ayers Rock, and there was no light pollution. And I've never seen so many stars. We could actually see the Milky Way with the naked eye. It was amazing.
Mm.
So you can see why the Aboriginals, and I'm going to assume the North American natives, all saw that kind of stuff and why they were so connected to Mother Earth.
Yeah, and I think we're inhibited a little bit by language, because it there's a lot of assumptions we put on words and meanings and tone and things like that, but
Mm.
in essence, we're all trying to communicate, or they're all trying to communicate the same things. It's just a matter of words, and it's funny because the words of wisdom. This is spelling. The words have weight and meaning. So it's just
Yes.
interesting how it all comes together.
Well, I did the winning because I'm also the contest queen, and then
Mhm.
I have a sweepstakes marketing business, and I wanted winning words, but that was already taken. And I wanted something regal to keep, the crown on, but I couldn't find one. And so I went with and then you have to find a URL that's available before the business license. Even you need to find a URL. If the URL is available, then you know the business license is probably
Yep.
available.
Yep.
And so it was words for winning, and then I realized, oh, I need the show and the newsletter need to have a name, right? So I came up with words of wisdom because that's what I'm imparting, right? Like Helene's books and Tag's books, and so I'm teaching with other teachers just like you are, but you're doing it in podcast form and I'm doing it in book form.
Yeah, so my podcast is Wicked Mysterious, but my actual business is Hypnagogia. So I'm sure you have that somewhere in the show notes if people were interested.
Oh, I don't think I did. Did I put that? Let me just check my notes. No, I only have all the Wicked Mysterious links. I'm sorry. We'll
Oh,
add
that's
that
okay.
in.
Yeah, that's all
The,
right.
the beauty
Yeah,
of the
you can.
internet is that
Yeah.
you can fix things at any time.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can add that later, but that's where I'm really trying to go with it is helping other people, and I want to do that through spiritual advising. So that's where
Oh,
I'm heading. So, yeah, so my business is Wicked. My business is Hypnagogia, but the podcast is Wicked Mysterious, and it's only
oh,
because Facebook won't let me change my name. So, I'm stuck with
oh,
Wicked
see,
Mysterious for a little bit, but that's okay.
oh, yeah. Um, yeah, I see now. It's you added it in the your part of the
Yeah,
notes. I missed it when I glanced. Yeah, so
that's
it
right.
is. I'll add it because it wasn't in the. It's not in the description, but you can get readings and courses, and her podcast is located there. So I did not notice that because I have a whole list of links. I didn't notice that one was added. So tell us about the types of readings that you do and the courses that you're offering.
So, right now there's a waiting list for the manifestation course, but you can sign up for the waiting list on my website. And then for readings, I do them intuitively, but I'm also learning tarot. I've been doing it for a while, but the most best thing about tarot is how much there is to learn. It's just constantly evolving, and I'm constantly learning new things about it. I just actually took a workshop on it today. So I
How
love doing
exciting.
that. Yeah, I love doing that. That was another thing that just kind of fell in my lap. During my University of Metaphysics courses, one of the seminars that I was listening to, she was talking the reverend was talking about needing extra money or something like that, and how there's signs everywhere, and somebody said to her, "Why don't you try, working on, like, a psychic website?" And I was listening to that, and I'm like, "I should do that." So I did it, and I got the job, and I've been doing that, but I wanna go do it myself. It's kind of been, practicing, before I opened my own business. So now I'm at that point where
Yeah.
I did open my own business. So I've been doing tarot for a couple of years now, but like I said, there's always so much to learn, and I do oracle cards. I like those too. It's a little more intuitive. Um, so yeah.
Wow. That's really smart, actually, because what you did was um, almost apprentice at the
Yeah.
site. So that gave you the income while you practiced.
Yes.
And then once you got to a certain level, then you moved on to your own. That's actually wise advice for anybody that's looking to do something similar.
Yeah.
Instead of jumping into their own big business by themselves and how do I find clients and how do I
Mhm.
build a website, you just start here and get it going, and then once you have momentum you can shift. That's really amazing.
Yeah. When you don't know what to do something. Just take a first step, and it'll
Oh my
come.
god, that's a sticker.
Yeah. I know it stuck with me. I don't even know who told me that, but it stuck with me. It was probably Mike Dooley. I can credit him for a lot.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He
Actually,
really is.
I've seen some of his talks. One of the talks that's very popular, if you Google it, if anybody wants to watch it, by Mike Dooley, it's very good, and it's his beginnings on how synchronicities changed his life.
Mhm.
And he was a Toastmaster. I've been a Toastmaster for 18 years. Helene was a Toastmaster for 3 years, and he was a Toastmaster. And so, if you look it up, you can see one of his winning Toastmaster speeches, and it's his beginnings. And it's how all these synchronicities lined up in his life to get him on the path he's at now.
Yes. I think it
It's
was his
fascinating.
T-shirt business or something like that. He had a T-shirt business that failed, but it ended up working out in the end. He's very, very successful, and he's a great leader, when it
Yeah, I
comes
think
to
the jobs
speaking.
were pre t-shirt business
Yeah,
that
yes,
were
I
in the
remember that.
speech.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the other thing. You said you were in the corporate world and you weren't fulfilled, but one of the things that I've learned is that even though you go, oh, I could have been doing all this other stuff, but you learned and you got skills in all those other places that you think, well, that's not even close to what I'm doing now. But you got skills in those places that led you to where you are now. So you can't ever look back and say, oh, I wish I didn't do that, because then that wouldn't lead you to here.
Exactly. Everything's led up to now.
So what do you see your next, like, do you see anything, or are you just doing something for your next steps?
Well, I'm doing something, but I love it. It does feel fulfilling. It doesn't feel like work to me. I
Uh-huh.
enjoy writing. I enjoy video editing. So that's my next step, is to move more toward YouTube. I've started doing video podcasting just last month. So that was my next step. I also want to finish my degree, which comes with writing a dissertation, which is actually on synchronicity and Carl Jung's work. So there's just not enough hours in the day.
I
But
know that feeling.
yeah. So that's where I'm heading. I'm excited about the courses. I want to keep creating more of those, and I just want to help people, and I want to do more in my community, which is something I've started doing recently. So more of those things that feel good, that help. That's how I feel fulfilled.
I like that. It's a win-win. Like,
Yeah.
you're happy, and like, actually watching you talk, you can see the passion and the energy and how excited you are about this future
Hmm.
that you have in front of you, that could be full of twists and turns, but it doesn't matter because it's going to be fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see you building on your YouTube channel and doing kind of what I'm doing, having guests. Like,
Hmm.
there's so many. This is what's so exciting, is there's so many doors. Like, you could be doing tarot online, and you can be having
Yep.
guests online, and you can video your podcast and now add video to it, and you can, like, you're doing courses,
Hmm. Yeah, and that's
potential
what I
book in
tell
your
my
future.
clients. Yeah, that's what I tell my clients too, is like, once you realize you can have anything you want, it's like life becomes a buffet, right? But you only have one plate. So
Oh,
you can
dang.
only fit so much, right? So I think that's the hardest thing. That's been the hardest thing for me, and the hardest thing for a lot of my clients, is just deciding what you want. You can be successful in anything, but you're only human. We're not machines, right? We only have 24 hours in a day. We need to sleep. I need like 9 hours of sleep, so
Oh, same.
that, yeah. So, it's there's only so much that you can take on, and but yeah, life is a buffet, and your plate can only hold so much. So you got to decide what's the most important, what's going to help the most people, what's going to make you feel lit up, what's going to make you feel like you've made a mark on the world, and how you feel successful and happy, which is elusive, and that's part of life. It's chasing the
Mm.
happiness that makes us happy. It's not actually getting there.
Oh, yeah. It's the journey, not the destination.
Hmm.
But that's what Helene called, why she called her book the Name It and Claim It game,
Hmm.
because
It
it's
is.
a
It is a
game.
game. It
And
is.
it would be boring if it didn't have any twists and turns. I mean, think about it. When we sit down and play, any board game as a kid, you've got all
Mhm.
the, three or four of you playing. If some of you didn't get knocked off, or you lost some money, or you lost a turn, or you only got 2 instead of 6, or whatever, you're playing, it wouldn't be any fun if it was just like everybody was just winning, winning, winning. It's got to be a whole.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we're trapped in these bodies, and this is life. This is the human experience. There's going to be ups and downs, and there's going to be loss and grief, but there's also, if we didn't have those things, we wouldn't have all the good things either.
I
But
know.
it's all for our growth, and that's what it's there for, even though it sucks, but
Yeah, I can't remember who I saw. They did the circle with the yin yang, and there's
Mhm.
the two dots, and
Yep.
they're like, there's a little bit of, the dark and the light, a little bit of light and the dark, and they're together. And if one left, it wouldn't be complete. And I'm like, oh, that's so
Duality.
true.
Yep, it's duality.
Yeah, the duality.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. I want everybody to go and listen to your Wicked Mysterious podcast, because I realized I've listened to quite a few, but somehow I have not listened to all 75. So I have apparently a lot of catching up to do. And George's episode.
Yeah, that's okay. It's kind of a good time to start listening because we went from 2 people, just to me, just doing solo. So I'm going to start revisiting some of the older episodes and bringing them to YouTube, as a video format. So if you've missed stuff, that's totally fine. I mean, it's always available anyway, but, um, yeah, that'll be kind of a new revamped, um, of the old episodes, revisiting
Yeah,
those.
and the thing is, I'm going to say she only has 75. The mysterious universe, you could go on into infinity. There's so
Mhm.
many different things you can talk about. So
Yep.
whatever synchronicity comes to you, that's it. You're just going to jump on that.
And you know what's crazy too is in doing all those 75 episodes, so many times was something mentioned from a previous episode. Um, it was just really interesting. Just little things like certain people belonging to the same societies or knowing each other or something like that. And it's like a thread that just keeps
Mm.
going. It's everything is so interconnected and it never stops amazing me.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I didn't catch that, the threads,
Mhm.
when listening. But now that you said it, I might go back and listen to some. Now I'm going to have that ear
Yeah.
when I go to catch the other episodes, because I bet you I'll be able to start to see it. How fascinating. I didn't know that about
Yeah.
so yeah, so your whole show is literally synchronistic. So whatever you catch from one, you pull that thread and it takes you to the next one.
Mhm.
And
And
then
so
you
many
probably have another thread. You're like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. Oh, look, another thread. Boom,
Yeah,
next
yeah,
one.
and it's not intentional. I We were just picking episode topics at random. It's because it's, a lot of work to write and research, so it has to be something I'm excited about.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a whole list and I'm like, "Okay, this is the one that I feel like doing today." And then I start researching it and there's just something from 20 episodes ago and it just comes up again and it's just interesting. There was so many times where I'd say, "George Van Tassel said that." Because I love him. So I would just keep saying like, "He mentioned that," and it keeps going. It's so interesting, so fascinating how it all comes together. And that's what I mean. There is truth out there. If you go and look, you'll find it. It might not be 100% something that you can prove, but I'm okay with being wrong 99% of the time. It is what it is.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting because you're right. It is out there, but I think the whole point is you have to find it for yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
And yeah, we're here to learn and to have fun and to experience all the human things. Some we label good and some we label bad, but they are just what they are. It's
Yeah.
only by our definition. And what you're doing is I want to say it's almost like an onion. You're just peeling the layers one at a time just to see like, can we get to the core of this?
Yeah, and I think just the storytelling aspect of it and just using your imagination, even if it's something there was quite a few things that we tried to research, and once I get into it, I realized that this is fake or this was proved to be a hoax, and it's still fun to talk about. It's still fun to think about what if it was true. There
Oh,
was
yeah.
a Yeah, there was an episode we did on the gold leaf lady, which
Hmm.
to me, I was so fascinated. I thought it was I mean, not that I necessarily thought it was real, but I didn't think there was any proof saying it wasn't, so you don't know. But then, on social media and stuff, you see so many people just saying how what a stupid segment that was on I got it from Unsolved Mysteries, so people talking about the show and, um, how it wasn't believable at all, but it's just fun to think about, what if there was a lady that could do that, you know? So just keeping the wonder, even if
Well,
it's
yeah, yeah. I think people need to lighten up a little bit
Oh, yeah. I know.
on social media.
Oh, yeah.
Like Like, you're right. It was disproven. However, use your imagination. Wouldn't it be cool if, I mean, that's where authors sometimes get their ideas for
Mhm.
books. They go, well, that's fake, but what if this happened?
Right.
Right? And then you go down that way, and it's not real, and the author knows it's not real, but it still makes for a fun story,
Yeah.
and it makes for an interesting podcast. And if they don't like it, they can always just change the channel or swipe or click off or
Yeah, and that's
next
been a
episode.
huge learning experience for me because like I was telling you before we went live, a couple years ago, my Facebook page just out of nowhere blew up and there was one video that went viral and had millions of views, but it's like, oh, that's well and good. Everybody wants that. But then you start seeing the comments and start seeing people making fun of you and all this stuff. And it's like, it's just another thing. Like, thank you, universe, for the experience because now it doesn't bother me. Now
Oh,
I
yeah.
got over that, and, like, it's all just part of learning and putting yourself out there and finding what makes you what you feel passionate about, whether people like it or not, doesn't matter. You'll find your people eventually.
Yeah, I tell everybody that starts out on social, because I learned this lesson in 2006 when my first book came out, and it was like, this was in groups, so social wasn't even a thing, and it was like
Yeah.
flame wars online, and I was getting
Yeah.
emails like out, like all over the place,
Yep.
and just hate mail. And I had to go read the 4 agreements, because number
Yes.
2 is, it's never about you. It's not, don't take anything personally. And I
Yes.
started to realize that all 2 things. 1, the hate coming towards you is a reflection of them, not you.
Mhm.
2, sometimes within the hate, there's gold. So pay attention. You might find some episodes in this, and I'll explain. So, for example, someone complained on Amazon that they bought my book and they were American and it only had Canadian resources, and they were really disappointed, and they found it really confusing because I have these sweepstakes books and I had an
Yeah.
American edition and a Canadian edition. I thought that's really weird. I ended up looking on Amazon, and Amazon KDP had linked my 2 different editions. So if you were on Kindle, it was one edition and the paperback was the other edition.
Oh, no.
Oh no. So then I had them fix it. But if I hadn't read the comments and somebody was slagging me,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have solved the problem. And that's happened a couple of times. Someone was complaining about Helene Hansel, that I hadn't written all the chapters in the book. And I had, for what I had, but then it was only after I published it did I get a very first edition. And there was one chapter missing. So, not to be a gatekeeper, I put it on my website. And then I realized the half of the chapter actually ended up in this book, In Contact with Other Realms. So she
Yep.
took it out and moved it to another book. So everyone actually has everything. But watch your comments, because someone might say something and you're like, oh, that would be a good episode. And off
Yeah.
you go.
Oh,
Thank
for
you very
sure.
much.
Yeah, I do get a lot of messages, thankfully, they're positive, but yeah, the 4 agreements, it's funny you say that. I joined a spiritual women's group, and they have a book club, and the first book was the 4 agreements. So I just finished that last month, and I it's funny because I had it on my shelf for probably 10 years. I think it was my
Mhm.
sister's copy, and I just never read it. And, yeah, life-changing advice for sure. But yeah, not to take it personally, but there is criticism too, and that's okay. Feedback's good. I do take
Yeah,
it and I listen to it and apply it.
yeah, critique is good because that helps you grow. I learned that in Toastmasters. Criticism is hard sometimes, but I try to sometimes scan them to see if they've got a problem, maybe there's something I should be fixing
Yep.
to make their experience better,
Yep.
which is fascinating. And it's also sometimes hard.
Yeah.
But to your point of going off on this adventure and following, have you ever read what was the is it Un-F Yourself
I
by
think
Gary
I
John
did.
Bishop.
I think I did, or something similar with a similar title, maybe. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and if I don't have the physical copy, they all blur together in my head.
Yeah. He's wonderful because he's Scottish, so his voice is lovely to listen to.
Yes.
But he says something along the lines of, we're all going to die. You're going to die. One of his points in the book is you're going to die.
Mhm.
Could be in 10 minutes. Could be in 10 years. Could be in 100 years. I have no idea. But I do know that you will die. So what are you waiting for? Just get on it. And to your point, if you don't know what getting on it is, just do something and watch what doors it opens and see how you come through.
Yeah, and to get real woo-woo, you can ask, part of the University of Metaphysics is daily meditation. And they
Mhm.
really, really, really harped on that. And it was something I had to do to earn my degree. And it was,
Oh,
yeah. And you can ask, and whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever, it's all you. Your thoughts are just continually bouncing off each other forever in your head, and you can ask your higher self for things like that. If you don't know what to do, it will come, and that's when the synchronicities start coming, and that's when you start noticing little signs, and you start thinking about it and putting it all together, and it'll come. But you do have to be open, and that's a whole practice in itself too.
yes. That's one thing I've been working on too with um, the Silva method
Hmm.
is the daily meditation, because I've noticed that, and you might notice this too, if something happens and you miss a day, you're like, oh, that wasn't good. It's like not drinking water for a whole day.
Yeah.
You're off. You're
Yeah.
off, and you've got to do it. You can't miss it. You can miss eating for a day, but you can't miss your meditation. Now, is there
Yeah.
anything I didn't cover that I totally forgot to ask you that I didn't cover that you think is important that the audience should know?
Um, no, I think we covered everything. Just, believe in yourself, and that's hard. That's really hard for a lot of people. And part of the coaching that I do is all about that. And I learned that from the Infinite Possibilities train the trainer that I did. All the different ways that you can investigate your own thoughts, and just keep in mind that you're not your thoughts, you're the observer of them. And so they
Mm,
don't have to mean, it means what you ascribe to it. It doesn't inherently mean one thing or another. So just that detachment, and again, that comes from meditation, and being able to remove some of the beliefs that you have, and some of the societal constructs that we're forced to endure, so that you can really get to the essence of who you are and how you can express that, right? Because the universe is, or you're just an expression of one part of the universe. And you know there's people there to help get you there. um but yeah, I would love if people tuned in to Wicked Mysterious, or if you send me an email with topics.
oh,
We
that's a
do
good
use
idea.
them.
Send in show ideas.
Yeah. So you can send it to wickedmysteriouspod@gmail, or
I'll add
message
that
me.
too to the
Yeah.
description.
Or you can message me on any of the social platforms. I get
Oh,
them.
yeah. I
um
linked to all of those, so that would
yeah.
be easy. Yeah, because I've got your Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. There's no excuse. You can reach her anywhere.
Yeah, you can. So yeah, so it's mostly the popular ones are aliens, of course. Everybody wants to hear a good old abduction story. So um, there's those, but I like the woo woo side of it, and what does that mean type stuff. So um, aliens, any kind of weird phenomena, psychics. Another good one. Have you heard of Ingo Swan?
You know what? He keeps coming up. What's crazy is in August, I took the Silva method twice because I'm in the program to become a Silva instructor. And I took it with Ken Kasia, who is the longest, like he was the youngest Silva instructor certified by Jose himself in 1971 at 19 years of age. Can you imagine? And he's been meditating every day for 54 years. He looks much younger than 73. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's because he meditates. That's why he does not, he looks 60. It's he's fantastic. Anyway, we're doing the Silva method, and each teacher, like there's a format, but each teacher has their own stories. And so the course is a little different based on everyone's experience. So it's really interesting to take it with different people. And he's going through, and he said, oh yeah, and one day they had Ingo Swann at this meeting, and every student went, oh, and he's like, yeah, he was just a nice guy. And we're all like, what? Wait. And then he kept teaching, and we're like, but we want Ingo Swann stories.
Yeah. Yeah. What an amazing guy.
What?
Yeah.
It was, it was fascinating. So yeah, Ken met him. Just,
wow. No big deal.
And didn't even think he was telling us all these stories of all the people that he met. And he's had a magical life, like crazy magical with the people he met. Oh yeah, I met Dr. Andrew Weil when he still had hair. Then he hung out with Ram Dass.
Wow.
When he was still, I think, Richard Allen I think that's his name. I'm going on memory. And yeah, Ken is fascinating. Yeah, but he hung out with Ingo Swann. What?
Wow. Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Anyway, yeah, he did all the remote viewing. And Helene, I found out Helene had done it too.
Mm-hmm.
The remote viewing. I have yet to try remote viewing.
Yeah.
Have you done it?
I haven't. No, I have not. I've done quantum jumping, which is pretty interesting.
That's also Silva tied. That's Bert Goldman.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Who was a Silva instructor.
Yeah, I'm very fascinated with the Silva method. I'd love to. I just bought the book. I'd love to do the course on it someday. I took like a mini course on it, which was great. But
yeah, I'll get you to go to Ken's, and I'll go again, because graduates. Now, this is one thing I really loved about Jose and what he did is after you take it, you can review anytime. So sometimes we've had people that come to the course, they haven't done it in 30 years, but they can still just pay the graduate as long as you get a card with like a number. And I've had people that have lost it, life happens. You can contact Silva International, and they'll help you find your number so you can take it review again. And it's fantastic. Yeah. And I personally prefer, I think you're like me. That's the sense I'm getting, is you do better like in a 4-day in-person workshop, because you're just there and you're just getting all the material.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very interested in that. But no, I haven't tried remote viewing or astral projection. But that's a big.
So how'd the quantum jumping go?
You're
here.
I feel like a little insane trying to explain it to people, because then your mind starts going into this like time isn't real, and then people stop listening. And so it's definitely something that you have to practice, that frame of mind that time is not real, and it's a measurement that humanity has put on how we get through our day to day. But quantum jumping is fascinating. I was following some kind of manifestation coach, and she sent a digital download for a meditation, and I listened to it, and I've done them on my own too. Just really, really using like the alpha brain state to get into the mode of feeling like you have it right now, which is a very hard leap, and it takes a lot of practice. But it does work. It just takes practice. So yeah, the realization that there is no time. So therefore, if you want something, you already have it. And again, we're very inhibited by words. It's more of something that you need to experience, because the words don't do it justice. So I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, there's ways that you can do certain meditations to get your mind to quantum jump or quantum leap, as they call it. And we did an episode on that as well.
Yeah, people abandon. Helene has a story, and I believe it's in one of the books. At this point, it's also a blur for me. But she had a dream where she came to like this warehouse,
Hmm.
and there was a man at the door, and she came, and it was full of stuff like cars and houses and like stuff. Like it was just like, if you ever saw Warehouse 13, like just full big warehouse. And she said, "What is all this?" And he says, "Oh, this is everything everybody wanted, but just didn't keep, like they started the manifesting process, but then they gave up on it.
Yeah.
And so we're holding it here for when they finally get to it." And I was like, "Oh, that's just exactly like what you were saying. You're
Yeah.
saying, they start the process of the I want this, and then they don't hold the energy long enough,
Yep.
and it's still waiting for them in the warehouse."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. Where, like I said, we're cursed with a physical existence, and it takes a while sometimes for that to catch up, and people will lose steam, or lose the want, or their beliefs start coming back in that they're not worth it, or they can't have it, or whatever it may be. And then it starts backfiring, backpedaling, and you just have to hold it long enough, and you have to really challenge your thoughts and really challenge your beliefs, and keep going, and keep that visualization there, because it does work. Um, Funny story about that. I
Oh,
wanted to practice a visualization just to see,
uh-huh.
just something small. Because I think at the time I was researching for the Helene episode,
Mm-hmm.
and I picked an orange. Like, I'm gonna visualize an orange, and I'm gonna try not to imagine where I'm gonna get this orange. I'm gonna try not to imagine, like, the setting of when I get the orange, but it's hard not to do that. So, like, you're imagining the orange and how it smells, and the texture, and, I'm imagining, like, "Wow, I this worked. I got this orange," and I'm picturing it in my kitchen, even though I know I really shouldn't picture like that, because I don't want what if somebody can give me an orange somewhere else, and now I'm, like, restricting how it's gonna come to me. But long story short, that's just what my visualization just kept going to, is me standing in my kitchen with this orange. And on Christmas Day, my aunt brought me an orange, which I know is like a thing, like a tradition, but not in
Mm-hmm.
my family. Not We never got
Oh,
oranges or anything like that. So she handed me the orange in my kitchen, and I was like, like blown away. I could not even describe to people, because of course they're gonna think I'm nuts, but it does work. It does. And you have to try, and you have to really want it, and really put the energy of the desire into it, and really be able to visualize, like, the touch and the feel, and the smell, and how it's going to make you feel to do it. And then I went back and rewatched some of Helene's interviews for the podcast, and she was like, just try it with an orange. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, couldn't believe that I heard her say that after I had just done it. So
I know, that's funny, right? How
yeah.
how that happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, she was an interesting lady. I wish I had spent more time with her because I only did the 4 days.
Yeah.
And my only regret is I'm smarter now. And the questions that I asked her then, I'd ask her much different questions
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
I did have someone say that I should just talk to her anyway because
Yeah.
she just doesn't have her physical body, but she's still hanging around.
Yeah.
I remember when I started writing her books, I was working on one of mine, which I'm finally finishing. And I was talking to an intuitive girlfriend, and she goes, "Does Celine have a very distinct voice?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, I just heard her." She goes, "Mine first, mine first." "Well, yours first are done, madam. And I'm finally finishing mine."
That's great. I can't wait to
Yeah.
read it.
Yeah. So all of hers are done. They're being translated, and I'm working on the final Audible book.
Oh, that's great. I can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you like Audible,
Yeah.
it's actually good. I'm very surprised. And I guess this is tied to your podcast because people like to listen. About a third of the book sales are on Audible. Like,
Wow.
I'm shocked at how many people like audiobooks.
Yeah. It's because we're so busy. We're driving or working and otherwise can't hold a book.
Yeah,
But that's why I joined a book club because I'm like, I need somebody to hold me to this. Otherwise, I'll never do it. So,
it's fascinating. Yeah. So anyway, bookmark Wicked Mysterious Podcast on your favorite channel. Like we have it, it's Spotify, it's Apple, it's Buzzsprout, it's Podbean. It's like there's no excuse.
yeah, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere podcasts are sold.
Yeah.
Uh, and just start. And you don't, and unlike the nice thing about a podcast is you won't miss anything. You don't have to start at one.
Right.
If there's a topic that you really like or want to listen to, start at that one and go from
Mhm.
there. So go check it out, find out what you're interested in, and go have a listen because I think you're going to enjoy it as much as I do. Obviously, because I wouldn't have had her on my show if I didn't
Thank
think
you.
it was so awesome. So thank you so much for coming and sharing all your woo-woo.
Thank you
And
for having
we'll
me.
get people to come to your readings. I'll add the website to your,
Okay.
so she has readings available. Courses, there is a waiting list, but just get on it
Yeah.
and listen to her podcast in the meantime while you wait. Listen to a few episodes. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And one of these days we're going to hang out in person.
I would love to. I'll come up to Canada. I'm not that far.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I do like me a good road trip to the US.
Yeah.
I do my Trader Joe runs while I'm down there.
Yeah. Come to Boston.
Come to Boston. Yes. I've only been to Boston once. The annual National Sweepstakes Convention was there in 2015, so I'm due back.
Oh, wow.
I know.
That sounds cool.
This is the problem with wearing two crowns. I do a lot of this.
I know how that feels.
Yes, that's the other thing. That's what I think another reason I connected with you. You also wear multiple crowns,
Yeah.
which it's fun. It's fun.
Yes.
So anyway, everybody go subscribe to her, subscribe to me, and go listen. And then if you missed anything, come back and watch this episode from the beginning. Thanks, everyone.